If we change how we feed them, remove some of the unnecessary ingredients, and bring back just plain simple food, that will have a huge impact on their ability to learn better. When my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I spent a lot of time with him in the schools, and that's when I just became appalled at what we were serving our kids. The last thing he needed was refined carbohydrate, and the only thing he had was refined carbohydrate. And when I started looking around, I realized that it wasn't just school. It was just, as a society, we decided we no longer were going to eat real food, and we just went through processed food. And the impact I think it's had on our society is incredible. Well, when I first got involved with school, what's surprising to me is how school food mimicked fast food, and that's all that was really served there. And that's how school, you know, from 30 years ago when you had the grandma cooking food in school, now you have food system that really reheated food. That was really a surprise to me, that we were not really cooking in schools. And we started developing recipes that could be done in ovens. We started in one high school where we tested about 12 different concepts last year, and the kids renamed Thursday, which is the day we did the recipe, they renamed that True Food Thursday. So we then decided that our whole campaign was going to be based on true food, and true food is nothing more than just plain old food. To see him eating the salad bar, you know, you can't help but feel great about it. Are they all eating the grain salad and the legume salad? No, but if one eats it, it's one more than yesterday. So that's the way I look at it. High school kids that are giving high fives to the cooks because they love the food, you know, can't help but make you feel good. And just last week, seeing those junior high kids' eyes open up to see real food for the first time in over 20 years on their plate, that was just incredible. You like it? You cannot manage from an office. You have to be in the school. You have to be where the kids are. You have to see what's going on in your operations. Yes, there's emails. Yes, there's a lot of paperwork, and you need to get that done. But for the most part, unless you're out there in the field, you don't know what's going on. So that's a big one. I try to drag my staff along with me, and we go from school to school. And just seeing those kids, that's motivating. At least that's motivating enough for me to make a change. The main message, I think, is don't look at why it can't get done. Look at the kids and know that we have to do it. It's not an option. Our society depends on the future of the next generation, so we really can't afford not to do it.
Welcome back, everybody, and we're very happy to have Bertrand Weber on the stage with us for a conversation about the change you've brought to food and to school nutrition in Minneapolis Public Schools just in a little over 2 years' time since you started in the job. I want to start by asking you, how on earth were you able to elevate food and student nutrition to a level of priority in a district, in many districts where the academic focus is so strong, and how did you insert yourself into this conversation?
The second day I was on the job, I was asked to go and meet the principal at a principal's meeting. And I was told that our department was referred to as the Nut Center. And I remember going to that meeting, and I looked at the principals and I said, okay, I've started 2 days ago, and I know that you refer to us at the Nut Center. But from moving forward, we're going to be referred to as the Culinary Center. And I got a huge round of applause from principals going, you mean we're going to get real food? And I said yes, went back to the office, looked out my window and went to myself, how am I going to do this? I'm at the nutrition center, and I recall calling it the Willy Wonka factory, because basically that's all I had. No oven, no stoves, absolutely nothing but a factory. So that was kind of a rude awakening, going, all right, I just made a promise. I know that's what I want to do. I know that's what the kids need, but how am I going to do it? I think what was really crucial was to engage the community. I attended, the first 3 months, I attended more meetings with parents and kids, and I didn't make excuses for what we were doing. I really sympathized with them. I listened to the parents, and a lot of them were appalled about what we were doing. And I couldn't disagree. But I needed their support, because they needed to understand that after 50 years of having pre-packed food in schools that basically came through the back door, fully cooked, fully processed, just reassembled from a frozen stage into a pre-packed, shipped to school, and then rethermalized. I love that name, rethermalizer. It would take some time to make a change. I needed their support. I need them to support me. And what I asked of them is, I need your kids to eat lunch so that we can increase our budget. In 2 years, when I started, I looked and I knew there were opportunities. St. Paul, which is across the river, similar in demographic, had 72% participation. Minneapolis was at about 55, which meant that we were missing a lot of free and reduced kids. And knowing that there were 30, 40% of kids that possibly could not eat outside of the school lunch, not eating, that was a big motivator. So in 2 years, we've increased our participation by over 14%.
That's amazing. You had some huge, and still do, some practical challenges to even bringing real food into all the schools. Most of the schools have no kitchens.
80% have no kitchen. Some have no sink. They have a hand sink at best. They have an electric rethermalizer in a corner. Kids eat on stage. We have banquet table, and we put reheated food on top of table. And that's the reality. So, but there was a glimpse of hope. Some of the high school still had a resemblance of kitchen, just ovens, but at least something we could cook. And there were a few schools that had some kitchens. So we did start at the high schools, and we're now cooking 90% from scratch at the high schools, with the central kitchen really making fabulous grain salads and legume salad and all the sauces and all the things that we can't do at schools because we don't have the stoves or things like that. And we piloted 2 elementary schools, and then I thought that the biggest impact that we could make, at least to show the parent, the community, the school, the administrators, that we were really serious about making the change within our budget, was to do salad bars. And I really thought initially we were going to be able to switch the entire district with salad bar in a shorter time, until we actually did a feasibility study. And as you start going from school to school, and Minneapolis requires a mechanically refrigerated salad bar. So that was the first kind of roadblock. So we identified schools, and we went into the schools, and they don't have a sink. So that's okay, we can put a sink, but if I put a sink, I have to put a hood, and if I put a hood, I have to put a new electrical system. So my $10,000 salad bar becomes $90,000, at which point you go, okay, unfortunately, then we move on to the next. So we currently have 26 salad bars within the school districts. 4 of them have been donated by the local chef community through fundraisers. 3 of them came from a grant from the Department of Health. Currently, I'm working with United Fresh, which is kind of the branch that works with produce, and they're trying to raise us some more salad bars. I'm working with a local health facility who has pledged $500,000 to give us equipment for the central kitchen in order to clean up our food. We are working with General Mills on cafeteria makeovers. So we've really brought the community on board. Right. Minneapolis is a big foodie town, and I'm a big foodie person. So rather than having the community kind of deny what we're doing I've asked the community to embrace what we're doing and to help us out.
Right.
And because of all that, and I think the parents are happy, the administrators are happy, we're seeing teachers eating that have never ate before. We have anecdotes from principals at the high school really saying that kids' behavior has changed drastically in the cafeteria. They're actually conducting themselves like young adults, having conversation over lunch. Now the problem is I'm out of space at the high schools, so won't address that further.
I want to ask you, because your background is a little unusual. I mean, you had worked in a school district before coming to Minneapolis in your own, where your children attended school. But for many years, you'd worked in the hospitality industry, in hotels and high-end restaurants. Can you talk just a little bit about what the advantages of having that background and disadvantages, perhaps, in coming into a big public school bureaucracy to do what you've been doing?
When I first made the switch from the hospitality industry into the school system, I guess the biggest roadblock was to learn the regulations and having to understand all of those regulations, some of which made absolutely no sense to me. Pizza with French fries was a logical meal because USDA deemed that French fries was an acceptable vegetable, and therefore you had all your components. And some of this thing just didn't make sense. So I think one of the advantage was I wasn't operating within the block of school food service, which is you have USDA regulation, you follow the regulation, you don't lose money, you serve the kids what they want, not what's best for them, but what they want, and you're gold. And I went, that's not the way it works.
Yeah.
I made enemies in the way. I told a lot of food service directors in Minnesota that I didn't like what they were doing and that it was time we made a change. I started serving fresh chicken in our schools 8 years ago, and everybody thought I was crazy. My background coming from hospitality, I said to myself, I haven't killed anybody serving fresh food in the past 20 years. I'm certainly not going to kill kids now. But the large companies had really convinced everybody that chicken nugget was the way to go. You know, all you have to do is reheat it. You don't have to cook it. You have to deal with HACCP. You don't have to do anything. So, you know, why would you serve fresh vegetable when USDA gives you can? So my thinking from a hospitality, I looked at it, I had restaurants. I had specialty restaurants for kids, and they needed the best, and we needed to provide every kid in the district the same opportunity to have clean, healthy food. Yeah. There are tons of research, more and more, that really points to nutrition, physical activity with academic performance. You know, they make less trip to the nurse's office, less absenteeism. My son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I was listening. You know, there's an explosion of diabetes and all those, and it's all diet related. So, you know, that's what's driving me behind it.
Right. You've had some great results so far within a fairly limited budget, although you've been very aggressive, obviously, in courting outside funding and support with the local chefs community and companies. Going forward, though, I've heard that the school district is now really wants to get behind this and invest in. So can you tell us a little about what's on the horizon?
So the changes that we made so far, I was able to do within our own fund budget, and also reached out to some other grants. And I think because of the success and the recognition from the district that the community was embracing some of the changes, some of the renovations that took place last year, the district already put in the new kitchens in, realizing that that's the new system we were going in. After this year, our fund is tapped out. And we just received, actually, notice a couple of weeks ago that the district has approved approximately $39 million to move forward in actually expanding our kitchens within the district. So that was very exciting to know that's coming forward.
That's fantastic. And finally, in our last minute here, what advice would you give to your peers in other districts who, like you, are working within limited budgets that may not have a whole lot of potential to expand. What can they do? What kind of practical advice can you give to them?
Salad bar is probably, if you really have infrastructure limits, salad bar is probably one that would be the easiest to implement, and depending where you're at, you might not need a refrigerated salad bar, but you can afford not to make some of those changes. The new USDA regs are forcing some of the issues, but beyond that, as a society, we owe it to our kids. You know, they're the backbone, and this wonderful group has one mission, and I'm just here to support it.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bertrand Wilbur.
Thank you.
Next up is my colleague Michelle Molnar interviewing Stephen Hodis.